All right, welcome back to your Chem 4 lecture. We are moving on in chapter 15 about lipids, and we're talking about a special class of lipids now called steroids. So in the previous lecture and a half, we talked about the fatty acid lipids. Steroids tend to be very different because they have a nonpolar core, but that nonpolar core isn't based around a fatty acid, it's based around this steroid nucleus. And what is basically, there's three cyclohexane rings and one cyclopentane ring that's all fused together exactly like this. Now, these are numbered in a really weird way. So there's the A, B, C, and D steroid rings, basically. So this is from left to right, A through D. And then numbering wise, it's even weirder. This is carbon 1 here. And then you number around the outside. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you start here, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then methyl groups here would be 18 and 19 would be here. So now I recommend putting this in your notes. I'm not going to require you to memorize this, of course, because the next test is going to be open note, but you need to be able to recognize the positions here. Okay, so talking about steroids, there's a lot of steroids that are involved in various aspects of our bodily functions, and none are more important than cholesterol. So this is cholesterol here. You can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have our 4 fused rings that form the steroid core, and then they have a bunch of groups from there. So now, cholesterol in particular has a hydroxyl group on carbon 3. There's a double bond between carbons 5 and 6. 2 methyl groups, carbons 10 and 13. And then finally, this long kind of funky alkyl chain over on carbon 17. So now you probably have heard of cholesterol because you know that there are some health challenges that can occur when you have cholesterol buildup in your body. So cholesterol comes from animal fats usually, so meats, milk, and eggs, and it's synthesized as well in our livers. So cholesterol is a really important part of cell membranes, nerve and brain tissue. It's used to make other steroid hormones. It's part of vitamin D. However, when you have high concentrations of it, it can precipitate out from your blood and actually form these like arterial clogs. So here's, for example, a normal open artery where this is basically blood is flowing through here. This is where cholesterol plaques have basically closed up an artery, and you can see there's only 2 small locations where blood can easily flow through. So yeah, cholesterol plaques can really clog the arteries. And this is what can lead to heart attacks. So if you measure cholesterol in the blood plasma, and it's above 200 milligrams per deciliter of blood plasma, that's when cholesterol is considered elevated. And that's when you can have these issues with cholesterol plaques forming. So remember, again, you can get it from foods and it's also synthesized in your liver. So you don't need to eat a lot of cholesterol. And in fact, it seems like it can be very harmful to eat a lot of cholesterol because your liver is able to synthesize as much as you need. So if you eat a diet that's low in foods that contain cholesterol and also low in saturated fats, that seems to be able to reduce the cholesterol level in your blood. So for example, some examples here. Again, we mentioned that it's synthesized in the liver. So you can imagine eating like a cow's liver, for example, has a large amount of cholesterol in it. Same is true of eggs. Eggs tend to be very high in cholesterol. Going down the list here, we can see a lot of different animal products here. So fried chicken, for example, is high in cholesterol. If you take off the skin, it's actually less bad for you, but you're not out of the woods just yet. Butter has 30 milligrams of cholesterol in a tablespoon. Margarine, on the other hand, has 0 milligrams in it. So something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and just match the components of the cholesterol molecule with the drawing that we have down here. So go ahead, pause the video, refer to our drawing here of the cholesterol molecule, and try to come up with the different components here. And note, it's very difficult to see this B here refers just to this CH3 group here. So that is what B refers to. C is the bigger red box out here. So go ahead, pause the video, come up with your answers for sample exercise 14, and we'll take a look when we get back. Okay, so let's take a look. Well, A over here is an OH group. That's a hydroxyl group, so that's easy enough. B is a methyl group, it's CH3, so that goes here. The steroid nucleus is these 4 fused rings, so that's C. And then D is this funky carbon chain. Okay, now briefly, let's go ahead and talk about some stuff that happens from cholesterol. So if you have too much cholesterol in your body, you can have gallstones actually form in your gallbladder. It's basically a way of removing cholesterol, and these gallstones can be dangerous for your health. So these bile salts kind of store gallbladder. Again, when you have too much of the cholesterol in your gallbladder, that's when these gallstones are actually going to form. So here's an example of a bile salt. You can see it's got the base structure of a of something like cholesterol. It is, got its steroid nucleus here, and it could easily be synthesized into cholesterol just by removing hydroxyl groups here and here, and turning this glycine over here into a methyl group, which we have enzymes that can do that. So this is an example of a bile salt. Yeah, so it just gives you an idea here. Again, you have your fused rings down here, and then it's a salt because you have your negatively charged carboxylate with a cation of some type, sodium in this case. Okay, another place where cholesterol is used is in the form of lipoproteins. So you've heard of LDL and HDL, high density lipoproteins and low density lipoproteins. That's what we're looking at here. So what we can do actually is cholesterol can actually function as alcohol in an ester with a fatty acid. And that's what this lipoprotein actually looks like here. So this is what's known as a cholesterol ester. And this is how it mostly functions in the blood. Basically, you have a nonpolar fatty acid chain and a nonpolar steroid nucleus, along with just the rest of the cholesterol molecule, which is nonpolar, and then just a very narrow polar bond here with the ester bond. Now, the way that lipoproteins work basically is that the nonpolar lipids so the way that this works basically is you surround any of these nonpolar lipids with lipids that have a polar core. So remember, we had the glycerophospholipids in the last lecture. Remember, they have a polar head, okay, and then a nonpolar tail. So what happens is the polar heads arrange themselves on the outside, and the nonpolar tails arrange themselves on the inside. So this whole area here inside the lipoprotein is very nonpolar. And that's where these cholesterol esters will be in the lipoprotein. These are soluble in water overall because all of the polar sites on the outside will interact favorably with water. Okay, so we mentioned already, we have low density lipoproteins, high density lipoproteins. These are just some examples of the lipoproteins. You have chylomicrons, very low density lipoproteins, and high density lipoproteins. And this just gives you an example of the breakdown. So the densities here go from low to high. At the lowest densities, we have a high number of triacylglycerols, compared to at the high density, we have very little triacylglycerol and much more protein. So these HDLs and LDLs are used to transport all of these nonpolar lipids through the blood to wherever they're used. And they're really important because, I mean, you need these nonpolar molecules all over your body, but your main pumping system is blood, which is made out of water. So water being polar wouldn't normally interact with that. So you need this lipoprotein structure to be able to transport large amounts of the lipids to the places where they're needed. Okay, so now let's talk about other steroid hormones. So hormones you're familiar with just from your life probably. Hormones are chemical messengers. They're basically ways of your body signaling from one part to another. Hey, I need more of this, or you need to do this, or you need to stop doing that. Almost all of these steroid hormones are derived from cholesterol. So cholesterol will make up testosterone and androsterone, which are the male sex hormones. The female sex hormones, estrogens and progesterone, are also produced from cholesterol. Also, you have corticosteroids that are produced by the adrenal glands from cholesterol. That includes the mineralocorticoids, which regulate your electrolytes, and then glucocorticoids, which regulate glucose. Think this way, basically your electrolyte balance, that's like the amount of sodium and potassium in your blood. So sodium and potassium are minerals. So mineralocorticoids would regulate minerals. Glucocorticoids would regulate glucose. And here's an example of some of these. Now, you don't need to memorize these structures or anything like that. You should just be able to, basically, from these structures, you should be able to recognize, oh, this is a steroid, and it's derived from cholesterol. So for example, this is testosterone or androgen. Estradiol looks very similar. However, you notice here, rather than just having a ketone with a neighboring double bond, instead there's a benzene ring with a hydroxyl group on it. Progesterone, again, very similar to both of those, but obviously these important differences make up something because they have different effects on the body. And then for norethindrone, which is a progestin that is synthetic. So it's something that behaves like progesterone, but it is something that you can make and you can then like measure in the body. Okay, that brings us to the word anabolic steroids. So anabolic steroids are basically testosterone that have been chemically modified in some way. And if they're used properly, they can increase your muscle mass in addition to strenuous exercise, of course. Anabolic steroids do have a lot of downsides, though, because remember, these steroids are signaling a lot of different aspects of our body. They control hair growth, fluid retention, sleep, all of that. So if you take anabolic steroids, you're going to mess with the cycles of your body, and you're going to end up having trouble, including fluid retention, hair growth, disturbance of sleep, and liver damage. So I guess don't do that. Note that these all have the kind of steroid nucleus. They're just slightly different. Okay, so that's anabolic steroids. Now let's talk about some of the important other steroids that are important in our body functions. That's the adrenal corticosteroids. So the adrenal gland is located on top of the kidney, and it produces these adrenal corticosteroids, including aldosterone. That's a mineralocorticoid that regulates electrolytes and water balance in the kidneys, and cortisone, which is a glucocorticoid, and that increases your blood glucose level. It also stimulates glycogen synthesis by the liver. So basically involved in your cellular processes and your energy usage and storage. And here again, we see the structures. Again, I'm not asking you to memorize these structures. Just kind of note here, cortisone is one of these adrenal corticosteroids. Aldosterone, cortisol, and prednisone. So prednisone is actually a synthetic corticoid. So it's just kind of here to mimic the corticosteroids that we do use. They can be used in other ways. Okay, so given all of that, now let's go ahead and take a look through our notes and try to identify each of the following as either a fatty acid, a steroid, or a triacylglycerol. So we have A through E here. Go ahead, pause the video, try to identify and sort these into one of those three categories. When we come back, we'll take a look at the answers. So until then, pause. Okay, let's take a look. So cholesterol, of course, that's what we've been talking about. That is a steroid. Stearic acid is one of our fatty acids. Glyceryl tristearate is a triacylglycerol. Estradiol is a steroid. And then steroids are the only type of lipid that don't contain fatty acids. So that does it for our talk on steroids. We have one more brief lecture on cell membranes. And when you come back, we'll take a look at that. And then we'll move on to the next chapter. Until then, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.